Okay, Jeffrey Epstein has apparently committed suicide. That was reported this morning. So he's, of course, the child predator who apparently committed terrible, terrible acts against many different underage girls. And he had gotten off of justice before. And at the time, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Miami, led by uh, the person who wound up becoming Donald Trump's labor secretary, that's another interesting coincidence, um, was let him off with a nonsense prison sentence where he didn't even have to go to prison for basically 6 days out of the week. And so now he was caught again, and he was in prison, and he was on suicide watch. Apparently, he tried suicide a month ago, and somehow, golly gee, as we had him on suicide watch, he happened to commit suicide. They caught a tough break on that one, and all the rich and powerful men who he was connected to happened to catch a very, very lucky break on that one as well. So now a lot of people are obviously skeptical about it. Where do I stand? Well, how would I know? I wasn't there. So, uh, for the people who are definite, I don't know how you're definite. On the other hand, for the people who say, like, well, obviously, I mean, these kind of enormous coincidences that where the incredibly rich and powerful catch a lucky break happen all the time, and I'm sure they are coincidences. How are you sure it's a coincidence? I don't know how anybody's sure of anything. So what do we do? Luckily, don't worry, I have the answer. Um, two parts of this answer. First of all, I think everyone can agree, unless they're corrupt, that, and it doesn't matter here because the Republicans think that the Clintons did it, the Democrats think that the Trumps did it. So I'm going to get to this. That's part of the second solution here, okay? But everybody thinks that there's something fishy. I went online. It doesn't, like, the right wing thinks it's super fishy. The left wing thinks it's fishy. So okay, so let's try to figure it out, right? So we can all agree at a bare minimum that there was enormous incompetence to let one of the most important uh, inmates in the country who was on suicide watch commit suicide when he's the most likely to either commit suicide or whatever else might happen to him, given how many incredibly rich and powerful people would want him dead, right? So since everyone at a bare minimum has to agree that it's the worst incompetence we've ever seen, well, obviously people should get fired over it. So the people who were supposed to oversee him, whether it's the guards that were on duty, but more importantly, their managers, well, obviously they're the first that people A should question, and B should be most likely fired, especially the managers, right? Again, bare minimum is like literally historic incompetence, right? So, okay, if you're gonna get fired, you might as well tell us what actually happened, okay? And maybe what actually happened was they really were incompetent. Ah, man, I thought he'll be all right. I don't know. I don't know if people believe any of that. But and should we do an investigation into the finances, etc., of the people who are guarding him? Yes, yes, we should. It's weird to say we shouldn't because it, I'll say what others are thinking and saying all over the country and the world. If a lot of money pops up in the bank accounts of one of the people in the prison, well, okay, then it's not going to be a coincidence. Now that's an if. We don't know if it's going to. We that's why you got to do an investigation. Now, of course, that leads to the second part. Jank, easy to threaten to fire folks and and then try to get them to talk. And by the way, during the JFK investigation, uh, even Jack Ruby was willing to talk, and the government officials were like, "Nope, nope, we're good. No, please, no, we don't want to hear anymore." Okay, so who's doing the investigation? That's the important part, right? Okay, fair enough. So that gets to solution number two, AOC. You might be thinking, what? Well, first of all, I just saw a tweet of her saying there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. That's true, and everybody is saying the same thing. Again, left or right in this case doesn't matter. So why AOC? Well, it doesn't have to be her specifically, of course, but progressives should conduct an investigation. You're going to say, well, that's convenient. You're a progressive. No. Listen, guys, it makes sense. We don't like the Trumps or the Clintons. we don't like the rich and powerful Democrats. We don't like the rich and powerful Republicans. So we're going to be neutral. We're going to be fair. So if you put someone from the Clinton administration in charge of the investigation, If you put someone from the Trump administration in charge of the investigation, oh boy, right? It will either side ever believe the conclusions that one of those sides comes up with? The answer is no, never, for the rest of time, right? Put a progressive in charge of the investigation. We don't like either one of them. They don't like us. And the people like AOC are uncorrupted. They don't take corporate PAC money. They don't take any of those big donor money. So they have no reason to not do the investigation right. Now, as to the mechanics of how do you put AOC in charge of that investigation, I don't mean she physically runs it, right? She picks the investigator who runs it, et cetera. And it doesn't have to be her, but some sort of progressive that both sides can trust would actually be fair. Well, that's the problem, right? Both the powerful Democrats and the powerful Republicans, especially the ones implicated in this scandal, are not gonna want a progressive to investigate it, because not because they'd be fair, like not because they'd be worried that there will be unfair, but because they'd be worried that they will be fair, right? They're like, no. By the way, but in all seriousness, if the officials really just screwed up here, and again, record-breaking, historic incompetence that will go down in the history books. That's why I keep calling it historic, right? If that's the situation, you really want a fair investigation, because otherwise people will think you did the murder, and you won't be able to convince them otherwise for 50 years, 100 years, 200 years, right? I mean, this is like, as I tweeted out, officials said Jeffrey Epstein happened to commit suicide while on suicide watch. Officials say we happened to walk Lee Harvey Oswald unprotected right in front of Jack Ruby. Oops, right? Well, no, the government still believes that horse crap, right? But anyone who's ever looked at the JFK case doesn't believe any of that crap. There's no happen to anything. And even if we're wrong, you'll never get us to believe that there was a lone gunman. It's the most preposterous theory, unsupported by evidence, that I have ever seen. So now, if you don't want that to happen in this case, find a fair investigator that everyone believes in and put maximum pressure on the people who were in charge of Jeffrey Epstein right now. You got to do it right now while it's still fresh, before people can settle in and develop stories and team up on the stories, etc. But will anyone act that quickly to get the truth? Well, if history's any guide, the answer is very likely no. But hell of a mystery. I was going to say, let's find out what happened, except we probably won't. All right, well, let's see if there's ever any answers, is the bottom line. But right now, Jeffrey Epstein, very conveniently dead.